All right, so this is for a CrossFitter who's very concerned and worried about their first weightlifting competition, and they have a lot of questions about that. So first, I'm just going to give you a general broad stroke of information so you understand what to expect in the competition, and then we'll shoot a second video on some rules and simple things to understand there. Now, weightlifting competition is actually pretty simple for the most part, but there's a lot of things to be aware of. Now, the competition basically is boiled down simply by weight class and gender, and then by age at that point. So pretty much 36 years of age and older would be master, and 36 and below would be open. I mean, open can be at any age, but typically you would be eligible for master at 36 and under, or 36 and over. There's many other, there's school age and junior categories as well, and things of that nature. So the important point is it is age classified as well. But you have weight classes for men and women, and that classifies your division that you would compete in. But when you compete, you would weigh in at the beginning of the competition, 2 hours before the competition. Typically, depends on whether you're at a local or national meet, and you just got to look at the meet schedule and what they post for that competition. And there's different things you'll encounter, whether this is a USAW or USA Weightlifting sanctioned event, or just some sort of CrossFit event or something non-affiliated, basically. So there's certain rules and requirements that the USA Weightlifting sanctioned event would have versus something not sanctioned. So you consider that as well, and how stringent certain rules and issues might be when you go into this competition. But for your typical weightlifting competition, you would weigh in, let's say, typically 2 hours before the competition, and you would compete at your respective time. Now you get three attempts for the snatch and 3 attempts for the clean and jerk. I'm going to assume you know what the snatch and clean and jerk are, though. So for the snatch, you would have, as you weigh in, you're gonna report your opening snatch and opening clean and jerk attempt to the person who's weighing you in, and you would initial the weigh-in card to make that official. That is your reported attempt. That's something that's going to be conservative, that you know you can make any day of the week, let's say, or whatever your plan is with your coach or yourself, or whatever you're planning on hitting, that you're gonna put out there. What's important to know is you can't really go down on that declared weight. You have time up until before your name's called out in order to change that weight, but once that happens, it's too late and you're pretty much stuck with that attempt. There's all sorts of rules about weight changes and things of that nature, but basically, if you set that weight and you go out and make that, and you put that attempt out, let's say you want to try to snatch 40 kilograms, and you declare that you can't go down anymore, it's too late. And that's one of the first strategies and things that you got to realize, because the way the weight's loaded and the bar's loaded in the competition is that it continues to go up in heaviest ascending order, basically. So if you lifted 40 kilograms, all the 39 kilogram weights and below are already done, and it's too late to lift those weights. You have to take that weight in the order that it is loaded, basically. So there's no going back. It's the number one thing that you should really realize there. So let's say you make your 40 kilogram snatch, then right away you've got to report to the official at the judges stand, who's got a pencil and paper. They're usually by the guy with the microphone, what your next attempt is going to be, and you got to do that right away. There's about I believe a 1 minute clock, 2 minute clock in order to do that. So you got to declare that right away, or they automatically put a 1 kilo extra on top of your last attempt, arbitrarily speaking. So you don't want to get stuck with a weight you don't want to take. So you got to declare that, and that's something based on whatever your goals are and whatever you and your coach kind of decide, or how that last lift perhaps felt. And so that would be your second attempt, and take that attempt, and that's not in order necessarily. So there could be 5 other people who are taking 40 kilograms, and let's say you took and made yours. They still got to take theirs, and let's say you wanted 45 kilograms, you would have to wait until that 45 kilograms comes onto the bar. And so there could be someone who wants to take 41, 42, 43, 44, etc., and you have to wait in line until all those attempts go. So that's the nerve-wracking side of the competition. Timing is that you don't get to go at your own timing like you get to do in training. So you got to wait and strategize out how you're going to stay warm and keep yourself ready for those attempts. So there's an art and science to that, and people write books on things like that. So you got to have a good strategy and plan for that, and that's something you want to practice out and be prepared for the worst. And what are you going to do if you have to wait anywhere from no attempts, and you foul yourself. So typically you would get a 2-minute clock to foul yourself. So for most people that's enough. You could do a strategy where you take you've got the opportunity to raise and change your attempt. So you could declare 41 kilos and then let time run off the clock to get rest, and then wait and declare 43 if you want, and that restarts the clock so you get more rest period. But on the other side of the coin, you might have all those attempts to wait for, and you may be sitting for 15 minutes, worst case scenario, or even worse. So that's how those attempts kind of fall in place in order. Now let's say you take your 40 kilo attempt, but you miss. You sometimes will be in this situation where you'll have to foul yourself and you get a 2-minute clock, or the next person who might be on their first attempt at 40 kilos would take that attempt, and then you would foul them. So that's how that would go. But again, you can go up in your weight after that, but you cannot go down if you miss the attempt. And if you miss your opening attempt, or you miss all 3 of your lifts, that's called bombing out. And so you get no score, no total, and you're basically disqualified for the competition. So the main goal and objective would be to make something conservative that you know you can make in the competition, so you at least have a total. So the total would be your highest made snatch and your highest made clean and jerk for the day of those 3 snatch attempts and 3 clean and jerk attempts equals your total. And the person with the highest total in the competition wins the competition, basically. When there's a tie, the lightest person wins the competition for the tie. So that's the order of the call out and how the weight selections would go. And so what happens if you miss, and your next selections and things of that nature. So you just got to make sure you tell them your attempts as you go, and things will be all right. Now, when you start warming up, you got to consider the time frame. So to get yourself ready for the competition. So basically, what happens is there'll be different sessions that start at different times, and whenever your weight class starts, this will be on the schedule, and you'll know ahead of time. They will announce the lifters, and there's usually a call out, and they announce people, and then the competition starts with a 10-minute clock after that period of time, and that gives you guys time to warm up still. And depending on the order of the lifts and attempts that are going to be taken in that session is when you'll go out. So let's say you're going to lift your 40 kilo snatch, and you're the first person in the competition because everyone else is starting heavier. Well, that means you have to be warmed up sooner. So you got to figure out how long it takes you to warm up to your 40 kilo snatch, and then reverse engineer that plan and that time frame to be ready to go as soon as that 10-minute clock is up, because then you have to go. Let's say you're opening at 100 kilograms and you're one of the last people to go. Well, you have to count how many attempts are going to happen before you're up. So that's a whole other art and science where you basically, if you consider there's 8 weightlifters that are going to be taking attempts before your 100 kilo snatch, and they're going to take all 3 of their attempts before they get to you. Let's say the closest lifter lifts 80 kilos, and then you have your 100 kilos because you're way stronger than everyone. Well, that would be 24 attempts until you get to lift. So after they announce your names, that's a 10-minute clock and 24 attempts until you actually would make your first attempt. So you would have to pace out your time and know how long it takes you to warm up. So you got to consider there's either a 1 minute or 2 minute clock from lifter to lifter depending on the order of the lift and what's taking place. So there's variety in there. But if you say there's an average of say roughly 2 minutes per lift, for example, as each lifter goes, in order to reset the weight, time on the clock, the lifter doing the weight, and so on, you can kind of map that out a little bit. But a good rule of thumb on counting attempts is a lot of people like to take a warm-up attempt every 3 lifts. So for every 3rd lifter that goes and takes the attempt, they might do a warm-up set. So if you know that you take the barbell, so 15 kilos if it's a female bar, 20 kilos, 25 kilos, 30 kilos, then 35 and 38, and then 40 to hit your opener. I think that was 6 attempts. So you would count 6 attempts spread over 18 attempts of the session. So we're talking about the 100 kilo lifter again, but you would count out your six warm-ups over 18 attempts in the competition to spread that out time-wise. Now that's if you spread it out for every 3 lifters, and for a lot of people at first that might be too long. They like to move faster than that, so you might go every 2nd lifter or something like that. So we'll have another video on attempt counting, because there's a whole art and science to that and a lot of things to consider. But that's kind of how you'll time yourself out to make sure you're ready to go compete and do your first attempt there. Usually after you do your first attempt, your warm-ups are pretty much over, and unless you have to sit for a very long time, the rest of your lifts will happen on the platform. But if you get to a national meet where there's a lot of people competing at the same weight, There's going to be strategies that you might want to consider keeping yourself warm, whether you do another lift, a pull, or power snatch, something like that, to keep yourself fresh or strong and ready and focused for the attempt. So after all the snatches would take place, you have the clean and jerk portion of the competition, and there would be another 10-minute clock break usually after that. Just depends on the competition you're at. And then everything would start over depending upon when the attempts are taken. So that whole process starts over again. You do your clean and jerks, and then the highest made snatch and the highest made clean jerk is your total, and the total determines, the highest total wins the competition, like I said earlier. So that's the basics of the weightlifting competition and how that works. And what to expect there. So you got your weigh-ins, the attempts to consider, the warming up process, and when to take your attempts. You want to make sure you have things to eat, drink, things like that. Consider whatever competition anxiety you might have, and how to get through the day, and how the time fluctuations might occur. And then at the end, you would have your awards, and hopefully you get one. So other things to consider would be singlets in attire, weightlifting shoes, in general rules of thumb. So just to touch a few of those things, we'll go in more detail in the second video. But of course, I'd wear weightlifting shoes. You can't wear straps, things like that. There's certain equipment and outfit requirements that are considered. If you're not doing a USA Weightlifting sanctioned event, it's pretty loose, and you can wear pretty much whatever workout clothes probably you want, but you can't wear straps. And yeah, I mean, it just depends on the limitations that they might reinforce for that competition. In a USA Weightlifting sanctioned event, typically you have to wear a singlet, so you got to wear the unitard sort of thing. And the rules have changed, but you typically could not wear a full body suit or anything like that. You got to have your elbows and knees exposed for the judges to see your arms and see how well you're locked out with the arms and things like that. So you got to check with the rules on that. So you can wear t-shirts on your singlet, but it can't cover the elbows, and you have to maybe roll your sleeves up. And then you can wear knee sleeves. You can wear a weightlifting belt, but you can't wear powerlifting suits or things of that nature. You can't put Vaseline or anything on your suit. There's a lot of crazy rules and things that you probably would never even consider. But you can use chalk. You can use tape. You can't have your whole thumb taped up, but you got leave a little space on the end. So there's a lot of little rules that you might want to check in the rule book, or if you have any particular questions, check with the meet director or the referees at the competition as you get there. But I'll put up a link for an actual competition too, and you can kind of see how the flow goes. So there are 3 judges at the competition, and you'll have a front judge and 2 side judges. And as the bar's loaded, they'll say the bar's loaded, and you may hear a buzzer. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Depends if they have a time clock or not. But they'll say bar's loaded at 40 kilos for so and so, and they'll announce your name, and you can go out, and you've got usually a 1-minute clock to go make that attempt. And you got to go take your attempt within that time frame. If you miss the time frame, you actually get a no lift. So you got to make sure you're paying attention to the lifting order and what's happening there. So not too hard to do, but people make a mistake sometimes and they miss their lift. So have a coach or a friend helping you out with that process too. So once they call you out, you go take your attempt, and when you come out to the platform, there'll be a head judge there and 2 other judges, and you've got to have 2 out of 3 judges give you a good lift. So the white light is a good lift, the red light would be a bad lift, and 2 white lights equals a good lift. You're trying for 3 white lights, but basically it's a judge-based majority decision scenario. So the head judge, so your name's called, you go out and do the lift, and as you're holding that lift, we'll talk about press outs and things like that in the next video, but let's say you make your lift and you're holding the weight, you want to bring both feet together, feet basically stacked on your hips, and wait for that head judge to tell you down. When they tell you down, you can drop the lift. A very common beginner mistake is to drop the weight too soon and the lift doesn't count. So you got to make sure you hold and hold on the long side until people are screaming at you to drop the weight. But hold it until that judge says down. They'll give you a hand signal and you can drop the weight. And then look at your score on the lights or whatever. If they use hand paddles, whatever, you're going for at least 2 out of 3 good lift votes with white lights to make the lift. And then from there, tell the scorekeeper what you want for your next attempts. And so those are the main things to really consider outside of the specific rules for the competition. So good luck with that, and if you have any other questions, let me know. Basic rules for weightlifting meet. Now you got to know that there's a lot of really anal sort of ridiculous rules in weightlifting competitions that I fail to even grasp after years and years of competing and being involved with weightlifting. But the rules change a lot, so the best thing you can do is actually you can go to the USA Weightlifting's website, and I believe you can download the actual specific rules. There's a whole long laundry list of things to consider and all of the details, but a lot of it's overkill, and a lot of the stuff you'll encounter as you go to the meet. So the main things to consider is what we're going to talk about for the new CrossFit or the new weightlifter going into a competition. So we already talked about general outlay of the competition, what to expect, and things like that. So you considered your weigh-in and all those things, your attempts, your attempt counting, all those sorts of things. Wearing a singlet is you have to have for a USA Weightlifting sanctioned competition. You also have to be a USA Weightlifting member, and that's usually something you can do online through the usaweightlifting.org website. It's www.usaweightlifting.org. Some competitions and CrossFit competitions are not sanctioned. You do not have to do that. It just depends on the meet director and what you're trying to do. And when it's sanctioned, that means you got to follow the USA Weightlifting rules, and you're covered by their insurance and all those things. And that those official rules will be submitted to USA Weightlifting. So if you're trying to qualify for something, that's something you have to do. So otherwise, your total doesn't count. You can't do it after the fact, basically. So it has certain qualifications that you're trying to make for maybe a bigger competition. It has to be at a USA Weightlifting sanctioned event. So that's important to know. And likewise, you got to follow the USA Weightlifting rules. So in that case, you would have to wear the singlet, and you gotta, like I said, you can't wear shirts that cover the elbows. The new rule is now, I believe, you can wear tights and things like that. That's tight to the body, but you can't really be loose hanging. So, and the point is, so the judges can see your elbows and to see that you're firmly locked out and secured in the lift. So that would segue into one of the most important rules to know, and that's the lockout rule. And you can't press the bar out. So in the snatch and clean and jerk, it may seem ridiculous, but you can't basically have bent elbows and press them out on the lift. If you've got an inadequate lockout and you're just like this anyway, and you've got some kind of orthopedic limitation, that's fine, but you got to let the judge know as you walk out. You got to point to your elbows, literally, let's say you have an injury or something, and point to that to let them know you have an inadequate lockout. They'll know what you're talking about. But if you're catching soft and then pressing out, they're going to give you a no lift. And sometimes the judges are nice and lenient on that, or they don't catch it, or they don't think it was a press out, and that's fine. But and you might get away with that, but don't expect it. And typically what's recommended is if you catch something soft, just ever so slightly, hold it that way, stand up, and you're better off that way versus showing something visual where you're pressing out is going to really give you that white light. So the best strategy is to hold it by any means necessary and stand up and wait for the judge's down signal. But even if it's just, even if you're coming up slowly and your elbows are bent and you can kind of continue to lock out, you might get away with that. But the point being, you can't press out your arms in the lift. It's got to be one fluid motion to the lockout in the snatch. It has to be nicely locked out right away. You can't have soft elbows, basically. So that's the press out rule, and a lot of people are going to get called on that, especially for brand new. So it's something you want to get secured. As you complete the lift, you want to bring both feet together, say the snatch or the jerk, and make sure your feet are there and they're together. Otherwise, you're going to be wondering why they're not giving the down signal because you haven't completed that lift. The feet got to be stacked under the hips and under the bar there. So make sure that happens and you wait for that down signal. If you drop it too soon, you don't get the down signal. It's a no lift as well. And you want to drop the bar to the front of your body there as well after they give you the down signal. Other rules to consider, you can't use straps, obviously. You can use chalk and tape. Your elbows on a clean cannot touch your knees. So if you have a tendency of collapsing there, if your elbows touch the knee, they're going to give you no lift, and they're just going to tell you to drop the bar. For any other rule violation you might have during the lift, they'll tell you just to stop, just go ahead and put the bar down. You've already made a violation, so they'll just tell you to put the bar down. So it doesn't happen a lot, but don't be too surprised if something like that happens. Outside of general equipment, you can wear weightlifting belts. Some big powerlifting belts I believe, are illegal, but they're not often used too much. It just depends how thick and big it is. But I haven't seen too many people called for that at small local meets and things of that nature. Let's see. Silly things. So headbands, things like that, you might get away with at some local meets and say a CrossFit meet, but I wouldn't expect it. Some meets might even make you tuck your shirt in if you don't have a singlet. There's all kinds of little things, like I said, that you might run into and encounter. Other than that, we've talked about the main simple things to consider with timing, weigh-ins, singlets, the press out rule, things of that nature. So if you at least know that, you're going to be off to a good start, and you shouldn't run into too many problems or difficulties. So good luck and have fun with that competition.